What is the new capital buffer and Capital Adequacy Requirements CAR 23?
The new capital buffer is called the Domestic Stability Buffer, DSB, and it is an additional layer of capital that certain Canadian banks must hold to protect against systemic risks. The DSB is a type of macroprudential policy tool designed to ensure that banks have sufficient capital to absorb losses during periods of economic stress. The DSB is based on a bank's total risk-weighted assets, RWAs, and is calculated as a percentage of RWAs. The DSB can be set by the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, OSFI, at up to 2.5% of RWAs, depending on the level of systemic risk in the Canadian financial system. The DSB is applicable to domestic systemically important banks, DSIBs, which are the largest and most complex banks in Canada. There are currently 6 banks designated as DSIBs in Canada: Bank of Montreal, Bank of Nova Scotia, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, National Bank of Canada, Royal Bank of Canada, and Toronto-Dominion Bank. DSIBs are required to maintain a minimum Common Equity Tier 1 (CET1) capital ratio, which is the most stringent form of capital, plus the DSB. The CET1 capital ratio is currently set at 7% for all banks in Canada, but DSIBs are required to hold an additional amount of CET1 capital, based on the level of their DSB. The introduction of the DSB is intended to ensure that DSIBs have sufficient capital to weather economic downturns and to prevent the spread of financial instability across the Canadian financial system. By requiring DSIBs to hold an additional layer of capital, the DSB aims to reduce the likelihood and severity of financial crises in Canada.